Welcome back, and we're starting off with the weather, and rightly so, because of the prediction earlier on of early onset of rains in the southwest and delayed rains in the north. And it is about this time that, those living in the Ikorodu areas of Lagos, and indeed in areas, close to Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, that they begin to witness a flash flood. So how are they preparing, and particularly how is government preparing, to ensure that these people are safe regardless of what the weather says? And there's been reports that they've been asked to relocate to safer grounds. So what should be done in the future to ensure that these people can reside despite negative weather predictions? Let's have this conversation. And joining us this morning is the Commissioner for Environment in Ogun State, Mr. Ola Oresonya. Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us on the program this morning, Mr. Oresonya. Let's start with the press briefing that your ministry held just hours ago. Outline for us those areas that will be affected by the early onset of rains prediction for the year 2025.
Yes, thank you very much for having me. And I want to appreciate the fact that you're following us, and especially under the awareness campaign that we started yesterday on the impact of flood in our community. And what we did was to start, that's part of our preparedness actually, for flood, and to make sure that the flood season is not a lamentation season. It must be a season that we must prepare for. So it's about our preparedness, start with awareness. We need to let our people know the predictions are there, and these predictions are, the precision level is very high these days. It's no brainer again that you can know when it will rain, when it will not rain. So we need to let our people know that there is rain and there is flood. Rainy season does not necessarily mean flooding, but if you don't manage rain properly, if you don't have a hydraulic network that will tame your excess precipitation from the rainfall, then you have flood. And the flood, yes, can you manage flood? Yes, flood can be managed also. There are flood that must come naturally. There are flood that will come because of our unpreparedness. So those are the kind of things we did yesterday with the awareness campaign. And we were able to domesticate the national message from NIMET. NIMET gave the message for every nation, for every state in Nigeria. So every state, you are expected to go and domesticate the NIMET message in your locality. And that's exactly what we did. And yesterday, what we did also was to prepare the local government. The same information will be disseminated at local government levels for our communities on street-by-street basis. So that's what we're going through, and all about our preparedness for the rainy season. Areas that will have a flash flood, we inform them. Areas that will have coastal and river flooding, at the time they will have it, we told them. So some people, you have to stay indoors. It's a matter of living where you are staying. For some, you just have to wait for the rain to recede within 1 or 2 hours. For some people, the water will retain for a longer period. And we've been doing what we have to do to make sure that we reduce the retention time of water in floodplain zone, especially the wetlands. Wetlands are areas where flood must come naturally. They are natural terrain for flood retention. So all we need to do as a government is to make sure that we create networks that will reduce the impact of the retention during the retention period for our people. And I think that's exactly what we did yesterday, to disseminate this information.
Now, Honorable Commissioner, some would say that, Lagos and Ogun State ought to have moved away from this point, particularly because we had these conversations regularly last year, and months into the intense rainfall last year, those around areas, dotting the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, talked about the delayed deployment to site of the contractor handling the project for the dredging of the Ogun Ogun River Basin. And besides that, you also informed us last year that the Ogun State government had ambitious plans for the creation of drains in different parts of Ogun State just to mitigate what we consider to be annual intense flooding of these communities. So what progress has been made as far as these two interventions is concerned?
Yes, what we did yesterday, I think if you look at the video, we started by telling our people what we've been doing the last 4 years. What we said we were going to do, did we do it? We showed everything on the documented to tell our people so that people will know that what we said we're going to do, we're doing, and so that they can believe us. We know we are conscious of the fact that we are talking to the cynical public. So we need to document what we're doing. Because drainage projects, these are back-end activities. It's not when you are doing a road construction and everybody's seeing what you are doing. Drainage you are doing at the back end. For example, the Isheri area, there was a dredging we did there, the Oparo River, okay, which is opening another tributary for Ogun River. We did it. The people in the community, they can attest to that. Okay, it was a major dredging, about 20-something kilometers we did. Now, the one you are referring to, the Ogun River Basin Authority, was supposed to complement that and take it further down where we stop, take it further down to the lagoon. And that's the one the Ogun River Basin is supposed to do to complement the one that we have done. Unfortunately, the contractor from Ogun River Basin is yet to move into the site because of various reasons, which I don't want to stand there to start defending their reason for not moving to site. But what we say we're going to do in Ogun State, we did. And despite the fact that the contractor there has not moved in, we are continuing. We are going to open more tributaries around that area. The one we did last year was the proof of concept. Okay, the proof of concept was that, look, let us open more tributaries to reduce the retention time of this flood in this wetland area. And exactly we got that. Last year, instead of the water retaining there for about 6 weeks annually, normally when you have this retention around the Ogun River Basin, it takes about 6 weeks. But last year was just about 2 weeks. We told them to dump more than 2 weeks last year, and it was not within 2 weeks, the water retreated back to the lagoon. So we know what we're talking about, and we're going to improve on that this year. That's what we told them. We're going to open more channels so that retention around that floodplain will continue to reduce until when we can get to net zero retention in that place. It is possible from what we have done so far. We know it is possible to have a net zero retention around that floodplain if we can open more tributaries, and that we're going to do because we have done one leg. We now believe we can do more, and the government of the state is not relenting. Is going to give approval for that for us to continue that dredging. So that's exactly what we do.
Honorable Commissioner, we may have to have that conversation about the failure of the contractor for the dredging of the Ogun River to deploy to site. It's been, I believe, nearly 1 year since the federal government awarded that contract, and it was supposed to be perhaps a permanent intervention to mitigate the continuing flood and to check the river, that comes from the Ogun Dam, I believe, that also is responsible for the flooding of these areas. What engagement is the Ministry of Environment having with the federal government to ensure that this becomes a reality? And I believe there should also be that intervention between Lagos and Ogun states, because those are the states affected by this flooding. So what is being done? The residents, I'm sure they're also demanding some form of accountability from government, despite the fact that their areas are natural retention flood sites, as you have said.
When you look at the dam management, it's against the responsibility of the channel, okay, the river channel maintenance to the River Basin Authority. So it's a duty of care when it bestowed on the River Basin Authority to make sure that the downstream channels and the communities downstream are well taken care of. It's their responsibility. For you to have dammed the river, if there is no dam on the river, okay, the river will have maintained its width, it will have maintained its pathway, and people will not have been tempted to encroach on the pathway that will be dry during the dry season. The essence of the dam is to detain water for irrigation purpose, for electricity generation, and for several other activities. So the dam creation is a beautiful thing by the federal government. It's a lovely idea. And it's situated right in Ogun State. Now, the dam transverses, the Ogun River transverses the state, okay? And that's several kilometers across Ogun State. And there are communities around that area. So on our own, we have a duty to make sure that the management of that dam will not impact negatively on the communities downstream. And because there are solutions that are permanent, there are solutions that are medium term and immediate one for that place. For example, the permanent solution for that area is to dredge the entire Ogun River, redredge that river, create a new dike by the riverbank so that when you have a high tide at the lagoon and there's a release of excess water from the dam, the retention can be within a higher hydraulic network within the downstream. So that's supposed to be. And that's the responsibility of the Ogun River Basin Authority, because it was the impact of that dam that is actually affecting most of the activities. So the natural dynamics, the ecosystem and everything has been affected downstream. No doubt about it. Now, we expect the
Honorable Commissioner. Honorable Commissioner.
I can hear you clearly.
Okay, go ahead. There was some interference in the conversation, but go ahead now, sir.
Okay. Now, so what we expect is that the dam management ought to move in and continue that dredging. That dredging must be a continuous one because of siltation, vegetation that will happen. The river, when we detect, maybe the width of the river naturally, the natural width of the river probably is about 20 meters. All right, but because we dam the river, we thin it out to about 5 meters, okay, during the dry season, and even less than 5 meters. There will be natural encroachment about the riverbank. So when you now release the water, the excess water during the rainy season, when you release that, so the river wants to find its way back to the original area. And if you have not really protected that area, you have not dredged that area, there will be siltation around.
What conversations and what engagement are the Ogun Lagos state government having with the federal government to ensure that this dredging that you talk about happens eventually?
Well, we are not relenting. We've been engaging with them regularly, all right? And I think we have another meeting next week to make sure that the contractor will move back to site through the Ogun River Basin Authority. But with or without that, we have a duty to care for our people in our communities. Whether the contractor moves or not, we are ready to move it, and we will not relent in moving it.
Is it an impossible task for the budgets of Lagos and Ogun State's Ministry of Environment to also provide this kind of intervention, and perhaps the creation of another dam that will also serve as an intervention to mitigate the incidence of flooding in other communities in both states? Is it an impossible task?
It's not impossible. It's not impossible. I mean, if the technical report says that's what we have to do, then that's what we have to do. And I'm sure at the government level and then at the with good engagement by the governor with the federal government, I'm sure something can be done. It's not impossible.
Almost like clockwork, year in, year out, we have these conversations. Sometimes it starts earlier than other times. This is March now. You've given the warning for already March and July. Between March and July, you've listed out some of the areas, the Shere, Akute, Wariwa, and the rest. Now, is this different, first, from the one that will come later in the year? Because there's also the one that is usually scheduled for October, November. So is this different? Will there be another sort of alert in that sense? I need to clear that for people who are listening and may think, okay, once March and June is over, we're out of the woods.
Can I hear the question clearly?
My question is, this alert that you're given for March, between March and June, is it different from the one that usually comes October, November? Yeah. So would we still definitely see another one later in the year so people know how to manage their expectations and prepare?
Yeah, definitely. There are two different seasons of flood for Ogun State. You have the flash flood, which comes in the March to July, all right? And then you have the coastal or river flooding, which comes later part of the year. That's September, October, and early November. So there are two different kinds of flood. One is caused out of a high precipitation when you have a heavy rainfall and the water runs faster, okay, beyond the drainage network because of the heavy downpour. So that's one is the flash flood, and it can be very erosive, abrasive, and the rest of it. So the other one is the coastal and the river flooding, okay, and that one comes because there's an impediment to flow into the lagoon because of high tide, definitely. The tide will, there's going to be rise in the seafloor level, the tidal fluctuation around that period. So there's going to be a kind of a slower movement of water. The velocity of the flow will reduce into Ogun River, and there's going to be a spill over. And the spill will go through the floodplain, the wetlands. So those people have to, it's a natural occurrence. And, but all those two can be managed properly. And I think that's what we did yesterday by giving a flood alert for our people.
And one of the issues of great concern to the people of Isheri and other communities in Lagos when this happens yearly is the release of water from the Ogun Dam. And they talk about engagements with government over the measure of release. So what can you tell us about the release of water, when it will be released, and how it will be managed such that the flooding experience in these communities also can be at a level that is manageable?
Well, for this year, we expect the Ogun River Basin to give us kind of a water release plan for the year. Normally come up with their water release plan, and I will follow through with them annually on the water release plan. So we are yet to get that notification from Ogun River Basin Development Authority. So, and I'm going to follow up with them so that we follow through with them. But basically, because last year we were following through with them almost on daily basis. This year now, what we anticipate, what we expect them to do, is to be able to release more water earlier than the time they normally release it, so that to allow the lower level, even when we have the high tide, what would come from Ogun River Basin Authority should be less. So this year we're going to work with them on when they release their flood, their water release plan. I'm sure they should make it public, and I will have a copy and follow through with them on daily basis.
Are we also thinking about alternative means to at least make the water work for us rather than against us? And people have suggested different things for electricity generation and all of that. Is that something we're thinking about? Because as I said earlier on, it's like clockwork. Year in, year out, we have these discussions. And in other climes, they look at water and they say, well, this is what we want to do with it. Let's channel it the right way. Let's really pay attention to it. Let's use it to our advantage rather than to our disadvantage. So what are you thinking in that line? And is anything being done?
Yes. At our press release, we have the representatives of the Ministry of Agric and the Agric investors who are around, because to them, the rainfall is not just about flood, it's about food security, it's about food production. And I think because we're an agrarian economy in Ogun State, our focus, honestly, is more on harnessing the best of this rainy season for food production, preparing our farmers to make sure that they get the best from this rainfall this year for food production. So that our focus is more on food production than on flood, but all the same, the flood that will come due to natural or man-made problems, we also address that. So then also the floodplain also, we need to look at it also for what we call the water harvesting, so that we can have a storage of water for communities where they can use it during the dry season. The excess water that comes from this flood can be detained, can be retained locally, so that then we can harvest that water, then use it during the dry season for irrigation. So in areas where they don't have access to easy water.
Well, we must thank you very much, Honorable Commissioner for Environment. We've been talking with the Commissioner for Environment in Ogun State, Mr. Ola Oresanya. You have our best wishes, even as you continue this work to ensure that these communities, have a sane time during the rainy season, and indeed in other projects required to ensure better management of the environment. Thank you so much for your time on the program.
Thank you for having me.